My name is Bud Scott.
And
I'm an attorney here in Oklahoma City. I'm the project developer for the Oklahoma City Farmers Market District, and we're here in my office in the historic Oklahoma City Farmers Public Market.
It's awesome. I love this place. It's amazing.
Thank you. I do too.
I'm curious about some of the history. I want to know, and as far back as we can go, I've heard a couple different stories. I've heard things about maybe the flooding and the mosquitoes had something to do with it, and maybe Prohibition had something to do with it.
All the above.
Well, tell me.
Well, this whole property started as Delmar Gardens, and this was really pre-statehood, that it opened as an amusement park basically, and there was a beer garden, there's a racetrack, there's a theater, kind of a wooden theater with about 3,000 seats. There were arcades, old school 1900 arcades, but and like I said, beer gardens, dance hall, all sorts of fun stuff. And then they built an amusement park around it too, old school wooden roller coasters.
Wow.
But you had the Oklahoma River, which ran at the time directly south of this property, and because of accretion and avulsion, when it moves, it wasn't a concrete river like it is now, but it moved a lot, so there was a lot of flooding, there were heavy mosquitoes, and when those floods happened, it knocked down a lot of the wooden roller coasters, it messed up the buildings that were here, and then, of course, with the advent of Prohibition, well, I think Prohibition might have been a little bit later than the actual Delmar Gardens, like the beer hall and everything, so in 1917, I believe, is when the actual Delmar Gardens was shut down, and John Hardin, who was a concrete magnate here in town, he's one of the city fathers, very interesting character. He actually purchased this property and then built the Farmers Public Market on top of it.
Wow.
So because he had his own concrete company at the time, it was all built with his concrete, and he basically wanted to create a central marketplace for producers to come in, sell their goods, for people to be able to come from all around the area and buy from them. And basically it was a partner with the stockyards. The stockyards were a few miles west of here, still are. So you had that component to the city, which was an unincorporated property, and then you had this area, which at the time was unincorporated, and then became incorporated later on. So then it became the farmers market. So at that point, it was the main building, which the upstairs was built as it was kind of Oklahoma City's answer to Madison Square Garden, that they built it to do championship boxing matches, dancing, political events, etc. A lot of what we do today. Then the downstairs was the actual farmer's market, and vendor stalls surrounded the building on 3 sides. Now we only have them on the west side and the north side, because the portion that was on the south side burned down, I think sometime in the 1960s.
Wow. Any reason?
No idea. I mean, those are the weird stories that we hear. Some of our hearsays from urban legend, but as far as we're aware, that's when it happened. And at that point, they made the south side kind of the main entryway for the ballroom upstairs. The main entryway used to be here on the east side, where we have the arch that says millions of people have passed through this doorway. So that's kind of the history of the farmers market as it developed up until about the 1970s.
Okay.
And then in the 70s, this building, the Hardin still owned it. They owned it up through the 1980s, but it became a grocery store at one point.
Wow.
I think it was a Humpty Dumpty grocery store. And it's a really strange building, by the way. There's 2 apartments in here. Yeah, I mean, right on the first floor, which my office looks out onto, you see there's this like Dutch bakery building, and up in the bakery there's a 2-bedroom apartment.
What?
And John Hardin, his daughter, lived there.
Oh.
And then there's another like studio apartment on the northwest corner of the building that you enter from the outside of the building. So it's just, there's a lot of kind of funky history here, and it's really interesting. But you had it turn into a grocery store. And then this whole area was a food hub, so you had food distributors, aggregators, and processors here. Well, as their facilities started to age, they looked at buying larger facilities, more modern facilities, and a lot of those folks moved out to the I-35 area or Lincoln, and many are still there today. Buddy's Produce, Vineyard Produce, Benny Keith was down here for quite some time when they moved out there. But as that all started to happen in the 80s and really into the 90s, this area really suffered, and people basically moved out, and it became dilapidated and just another forgotten warehouse district.
Yeah.
So come 2002, Bert and Jody McAnally, who currently own the farmers market itself and 5.6 acres in this area, they purchased it in '02 with grand visions of revitalizing the building. At some point it had become a giant antique mall. So when they purchased it, the upstairs and downstairs of this building and then the fan that wraps around it were all antique malls. And so they purchased it, put millions of dollars into preventing it from falling down and restoring this historic landmarks on the National Register of Historic Places. But they only had so many resources, so basically most of their efforts stopped here with the main building because it's like Tom Hanks, it's like a money pit.
Right. So you keep throwing money at it.
Exactly. I mean, it's a giant beast at 37,000 square feet. And it requires constant upgrading and updates. So, they've put tons of resources, money into it, sprinkled it, redid stairways, redid bathrooms. We're currently building new bathrooms as well. So put in elevators. So yeah, it's taken a lot of time.
What has been happening over the last, well, I would say until 2002, but if it hasn't been that busy since then, just the last 5 years, or, what's been coming through?
Well, let's say 2002, and that's kind of the last, the second to last stage of development here. So you have the McAnallys that purchased the main heart of this area, and you have tenants kind of coming and going. You have the old garage stalls on the west side of the property where the Pinata store is, and he's been there for 20 plus years. You had the old Sterling's produce building, which was a produce store, and they shut down, I want to say about 8 years ago, so sometime in the mid to late 2000s, and since then it's been vacant. And then you had a number of other smaller food distributors kind of come and go, but the McAnallys leased to the Ham's Produce, which is a nursery here, and people have tons of stories. There's been a nursery there at one point or another for the last 50 years.
I didn't know that.
There's old timers that come down here all the time. They're like, I used to come down here and get Christmas trees right off the train.
Wow.
Or pumpkins or whatever it may be. And there's always anyone you meet who comes down here, especially if they're over 35 or 40, has some sort of story about being down here as a kid and buying fresh produce. So it's really interesting. But so from 2002, you had a few of those tenants stick around. And then you started to see a reinvestment in the area. Matt Birch with Urban Agrarian, he and April Harrington, who actually owns Earth Elements Kitchen, which is in the Urban Agrarian building. They moved down here in 2007, I believe. Is that right? 2008. And moved in to open up a food distribution center, all local foods, and then to have a storefront selling all local foods, and then the commercial kitchen as well. So they were the first ones really back down here doing a new business. While we can't forget there's still a lot of the old distributors here, the Oklahoma City Meat Company, which is directly to the east of this property, Empire Meat Company, which leases from them as well. They do distribution, processing. You still have some of the old banana distribution companies right around the corner. But over the last, I'd say 5 years, in my experience with this project, they brought me in about 3 years ago to start working with property owners and kind of coordinating development in this area. And so we made it a point of trying to restore this as something that's a lot of independent property owners, independent business owners. We weren't interested in doing like a Bricktown style development, and we weren't interested in doing like a Plaza style development. We wanted something kind of in between, but really unique, more like Austin or Santa Fe, and just the architecture around here is very much more Austin or Santa Fe than Dallas or Kansas City. So it lends itself to that kind of eclectic, funky development style. So, we have the Urban Agrarian. We moved to the Oklahoma Food Cooperative, which is the state's oldest, largest food cooperative. It's all local food. You can order online. Moved their headquarters here to one of the McAnally's buildings. We've had Anthem Brewery move in, who you just interviewed, Patrick Lively, moved in over here east of us. Got Urban Farmhouse Designs, Jason and Shermy came down and done a killer project on their property. Then I brought Clay Burgess down here. He was a client of mine. We were looking to do a bar restaurant in another area, and I convinced him to come down here instead and really roll the dice on opening a killer bar in this area, and it's been a wild success. So he came down here, just been jumping. And now we've got a string of young professionals that are renting our garage stalls that are artists. We've had specialty wood people. We've got a guy doing like bike shop where he's kind of manufacturing funky bike designs and everything, kind of like fixed gears and what do they call them? Fixies.
Fixies,
yeah. Exactly. So he's doing like the fixies, and then we've got 3 artists that are sharing space doing metalwork and woodwork. So it's becoming an eclectic area where we have a lot of unique development, and now we're about to open, probably been a month out, from our food truck park, Del Mar Gardens, which will be right across the street from the powerhouse and right next door to Urban Agrarian. And again, there's our homage to the history of this area. When they brought me in, I already had the idea of doing food truck parks because I've traveled the country and spent a lot of time in places like Portland and Boston and Austin and Fort Worth, and saw that food truck model and thought this is a really cool project.
Yeah.
And love to see the success of what we've seen happen over at Blue Garden.
Yeah.
And they're just killing it.
Yeah.
But ours is quite a bit different. It's just a food truck park. It's not a bar. Blue Garden's really just an awesome outdoor bar with food trucks. I mean, it's a cool project, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Want ours to be just kind of a community center, and then people can also rent it out.
Yeah, oh, nice.
They can rent the facility and have, a large part of the revenue generated here at this facility is from weddings and private corporate events. So we're looking to extend that option over to Del Mar Gardens. We've already got interest. We're not even open.
Oh, wow.
So we've got that, and then in the last 6 months, we've seen property sales in the properties directly east of Del Mar Garden and north of the farmers market, and some young developers are coming in and looking to open a few restaurant spaces, some shared office spacing, which we desperately need down here.
Okay.
So it's really moving right now, and there's still a lot of undeveloped property and options and opportunities for growing into a pretty neat district here in Oklahoma City. So that's.
I'd say, is there, about the food truck, is there any plans for music, like a stage?
Absolutely. So the design that we've laid out is, I consulted with a bunch of food truck operators in designing this project and making sure that we had enough room for people to get in and out, that they all have plug-ins, it's no generator zone. And then we left on the east side of the property an area that we can construct stages on, anywhere from a 20-foot stage to a 200-foot stage.
Wow.
So we can do a variety of options there. But the McAnallys own the old Lloyd Noble Center stage. So they used to be OU's staging for concerts and everything else. So they own that here, and you can mix and match the pieces and make it a little small stage for kind of garage band style or singer-songwriter, or you can put together a very large stage for more of a large act. So yes, we have that set up where we can do it over there, have lighting and everything ready to go.
That's exciting. Let's see. I'm really curious about maybe just some of the odd history, even if it's rumors. Like, has anything weird happened? Like, I hate to say this, but like, has anybody been shot on the property, or has anybody, is there a ghost, or?
Well, you mentioned both of those. So the very office we're sitting in, someone died in here.
What?
And many moons ago.
Yeah.
So I've been sitting in here. They brought me down here 2.5 to 3 years ago, and they're like, "We want to take this office space." At the time, it was just ceiling to floor full of stuff.
Nobody wanted to be here.
Yeah, it was stuffed, and it was painted avocado green. The windows were all painted over, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll set up an office space in here.
Yeah.
Came in, scraped everything, repainted it, and it took a few months kind of getting everything together, but I work late hours, so I'd be in here alone at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 in the morning, and this building makes lots of sounds. So it's funny, I mean, I'm not much of a ghost believer or anything, but I'd be sitting here in my office working on my computer, and the hairs on the back of my neck would just go standing straight up, and that blood would rush through you, and I would turn around, and I was like, Bob, or whoever was here, whoever died here, hey man, I'm just trying to do good stuff.
I'm just working.
Yeah, I was like, do I need to leave you a little bottle of beer or something?
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Do like the Haitian style, ancestor worship.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, hey, I'll do it.
Some fresh produce.
Exactly. I'll leave you a pumpkin and a drink from the powerhouse.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and there's lots of stories about that. How many I believe or not, who knows? But this building, God knows what kind of stuff has happened here, because it's just funky. And as far as shootings, there was a shooting on this property 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then one 3 years ago.
Wow.
So during a concert.
Really?
Yeah. Someone was passed out in a car, had on the other side of the property, and we have off-duty police officers that run security, and they went around, woke the guy up, and pulled the weapon on him. So they shot him.
Oh my God.
There was a drive-by shooting here 7 years ago. This was before my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, drive-by shooting, and this area used to be pretty rough.
Yeah.
There were a lot of homeless people here when I first came around, but as we've built and had activity during the nighttime, folks just aren't around as much anymore.
Yeah.
2.5 years ago, the old Buddy's Produce building, remember I was leaving, it was like 11 o'clock, head out of the building, and I see some flames coming up, and there were a bunch of homeless people standing there, and they set the building ablaze one way or another, and it's a shame because it's a really cool building, but they torched it. So, yeah, I mean, there's, this and that and the other, but I don't know of any of the older stories.
Right.
Now, Bill Hogan.
I'll have to talk to Bill about that.
And he's the guy who, he was a market master here for 50 years.
And what's your title?
I'm the attorney and project
okay.
developer. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just handle all of their stuff.
yeah, stuff. That's a polite way of putting it.
Exactly. Well, I work with the city on zoning issues. We do all the project development, so I handle licensing, alcohol overlays, all that really exciting stuff. And then kind of work on the marketing and bringing in property owners, bringing in investors to do projects. So I'm just kind of the guy trying to make stuff happen.
Yeah. When MAPS was passed, and that did 1, 2, 3, whatever, how did that influence the area, or did it?
I wouldn't say any of it's influenced it much. I mean, you had MAPS 1, of course.
Yeah.
So with the redevelopment of the convention center or the civic center, anything that pushed development west from downtown is a positive for this area, because we're equidistant from downtown on the southwest side as Bricktown is on the southeast side.
Oh.
And that's something this district's really had to overcome, is because up until the I-40 realignment, the Interstate 40 separated this area from downtown. So you're effectively cut off.
Yeah.
And when the city and the United States Department of Transportation decided to reuse the old I-40 crosstown and turn it into this boulevard, there were a lot of people around here who felt like that effectively cut us off. And again, I think it's going to be okay, because we've got some exits that go right into our area. But as far as MAPS and its impact, with the park development, so MAPS 3 doing the Central Park, we're going to be 4 blocks west of the park, and there's development plans along the West Park area. So any of that occurs is going to help spur development in this area. So we're happy with that. Also, with the I-40 realignment, the western ingress-egress point became the highest ingress-egress point for downtown traffic. So we have a lot of people coming and going here on Western Avenue, and that's in the parameters of our district. So, it's helpful to a degree. We just need more people to stop.
Yeah.
And identify, say, hey, there's a bar. There's a great little bar up here, or I can stop at Urban Agrarian on my way home and pick up some grass-fed steaks and take them home to the wife.
It sounds like you have fairly good, you have some sort of developed foresight in what will work in an area. Do you have any premonitions or hopes for future businesses in this area?
A lot, yeah.
What are you interested in seeing come down?
Well, I think, we've got a few issues here. One is the housing issue. Now, we've had a debate about this internally down here, and in my opinion, I don't think we should have much housing. Housing just makes things a little more difficult. Now there can be opportunities for very limited housing, kind of little pockets of, lofts or condos, whatever they may be. But we're really the people that are down here and the business owners are very kind of social justice minded as well. So we don't necessarily want high-end condos in this area. Don't know that it would fit. I would like to have some affordable housing for young professionals to get them down here, but that would be affordable.
Right.
That fits kind of the mindset of this area. Now, as far as development, the plan from the beginning was to redevelop this area as a food hub. And what that means is that you have all components of the food industry: production, processing, distribution, retail, wholesale, and even waste management, so like composting.
Yeah.
And so that's been a big project of ours, is to have all those elements in this area. And currently we have production, we have processing, we have distribution, we have retail. We've got a farmer's market here at the main building for the first time since like the 80s.
Really?
Maybe in the 70s.
Wow.
So, who would have thought the Oklahoma City Farmers Public Market not having a farmers market?
Right.
So that was a big priority for us to kind of get it going again. It's going to take a while for it to become really popular, but that's really what we're centering it around. So we'll definitely going to see quite a few restaurants coming in, some spice shops, tea shops. I've looked to the Kansas City River Market project as the inspiration for a lot of our development, just because they've done some really interesting stuff up there, especially around food.
Yeah.
And I've spoken with vendors up there who own spice shops or tea shops about coming down here and opening small outlets, basically. And that's kind of what we want to have here: a little more diverse options, so a balance between local foods and international foods. I've spoken with some of the Indian merchants, some of the Near Eastern merchants about bringing in some of their style down in this area, so we can bring a lot of different folks here. Some of the Latino community, bring some of their stuff over here as well. Although they're pretty well set directly south of us. Capitol Hill's only basically a mile and a half south and east of us, so that's kind of a nice connection as well. But I foresee a lot of that food style development, but then also I mentioned briefly just having like shared office space. There's very little of that down here, and it'd be nice to have some of those young professionals doing graphic design spaces or web design or don't know that we need many attorneys like me down here, but a t-shirt print shop. And we have this mall where the antique mall is kind of our plan, the McAnally's plan originally, and then my plan subsequently is to further develop that where it's less antique and more kind of a boutique shop area, where you have the guys doing the cool shirts. You have people selling flowers in there. You have people, maybe even like a little wine shop. That was the McAnally's original intention, and I want to help them realize that. So, and we get to that point, then it'll be open until 9 o'clock. There'll actually be shops down here, and it creates a lot more foot traffic. So,
and high revenue for anybody who's here.
Absolutely, absolutely.